So, it seems that Ripley wasn't the sole survivor of the Nostromo after all. Here's a look at the brand new NECA toys, Alien Romulus, Scorched Xenomorph. The 2024 sci-fi horror thriller Alien Romulus takes the phenomenally successful Alien franchise back to its roots. While scavenging the deep ends of a derelict space station, a group of young space colonizers come face to face with the most terrifying life form in the universe. NECA's ultimate action figure version of the Scorched Xenomorph stands over 9 inches tall with 23 points of articulation and features an opening jaw with extending inner mouth and wired tail. The screen-accurate figure comes with interchangeable dome parts for a drone xenomorph warrior look, perfect for army building. Other accessories include interchangeable hands, facehugger, and chestbursters with wire tails, and a display stand for dynamic posing. Sometimes there's a reason why things get left behind. And hey, you don't want to leave this one behind. Before we get a closer look at the Alien Romulus Scorched Xenomorph, if I can, I'd like to thank the folks over at NECA that provided the sample we could have a look at. The Scorched Xenomorph should be available right now in retail stores or online. Taking, of course, the tape measure, he's a pretty big boy. He's not a big chap, though. Somewhat similar, though. The figure's, though, going to stand at about 9¼ inches in height, or the Scorched Xenomorph is about 23½ centimeters tall. Going through my tickle trunk of other xenomorphs from NECA, I happen to pull this one here from Alien Isolation. One that I don't really get a chance to talk about all that much. He's very similar in style to, obviously, the big chap. But from a size standpoint, you can see how much bigger and bulkier this Scorched Xenomorph is compared to a regular NECA xenomorph. Paired along with the Scorched Xenomorph, NECA had also released an Alien Romulus Ultimate accessory set that will come included with partially fossilized remains of the big chap, a couple of facehuggers, a couple of chestbursters, and of course the containments as well to store them, or at least temporarily. Speaking though of facehuggers, speaking of chestbursters, both of which are actually offered up in this release as well. First of all, the figure does come included with a facehugger. The facehugger from a design standpoint is very similar, although the colors are a little bit different. In fact, actually kind of looking at the facehugger the way that it is right now, it sort of does look like it's painted in very similar fashion to a tarantula, in that the individual appendages, the fingerlings here, have sort of this cool kind of striping feature where it's got black and alternating colors of beige. It's more shinier, of course, with the way they've painted this, the interior or the inside of the facehugger. Normally, this wouldn't be how close you'd want to get to a standard facehugger. The facehuggers did change a little bit in Alien Romulus. They sort of broke the mold, so to speak, of what facehuggers could actually do. I didn't like some of the elements that were incorporated to Alien Romulus. In fact, some of the things that they were doing were more fan service than anything else. Had it only really been just a standalone Alien movie, they didn't feel the need to connect too much to the original 70s film. I think I would have liked Alien Romulus just a little bit more. Anyways, though, the facehugger, though, is really cool, though, and I love the coloring that they've done to this. You may already also notice as well the giveaway signs that there's some holes on the bottom of this, so it tells you right away that this has a wire built into its tail. I don't do this too often when it comes to facehuggers, bending the tail, that is, just because, again, like, the way that the tail is, it's such a very thin amount of plastic. I don't think that, I hope that down the road this doesn't start to split. It hasn't happened too much. I think I had one facehugger that after time, this started to kind of crack underneath. So far, straight out of the packaging, fresh and crisp. This facehugger doesn't seem to have those issues facing him just yet. The figure does also come included with a chestburster, and similar in style, it does also have the air holes on the bottom of this as well. They're not really technically air holes, they're basically just guiding holes that when they put them in the press, those holes are actually just like little pegs that then they feed the wire in between that. Even though a lot of times looking at that, a lot of people speculate that's air holes. But anyways, you get yourself a pretty cool, again, chestburster. I would, again, normally say don't get this too close like this to a chestburster, but it's well detailed, and I think they've done a really nice job on it. Just by the nature of, obviously, chestbursters, it's kind of really hard to have them standing on their own. A lot of times, I just have them, like, slithering around some of my other displays of xenomorphs. Speaking of displaying xenomorphs, the figure does also come included with a display stand. Although I don't seem to be having much trouble right now. He's actually perched a lot of his weight against the back of his tail. If you did want to, though, use a display stand, one comes included with the Scorched Alien. It's very few times that we actually get these stands that NECA includes with their aliens, but it's nice to see that they offered one here with the Scorched. It does actually consist of 2 parts. When you get out of the packaging, of course, you got the circular disc down below here, and you got yourself as well a clear acrylic post. The post attaches into the hole, simple shapes after all. And then on the end of it, you've got yourself like a little C-clamp. Now, it may look broken to you. In fact, it actually isn't. What they've done is they've made this, on the bottom of this at least, a ball joint. So when you plug it in place, you've got some poseability at play. There's no real instructions as to where specifically it goes on the Scorched Xenomorph. I found actually the best place to put it, and it's just my own personal opinion. If you look at the back of his body, where the tail connects to the rest of his body, there's a place right there that I'd like to put the joint, or I'd like to put that C-clamp. I find, again, the perfect place. You don't have to put it there if you don't want to, but I find it's the best place to store this if you want to have the figure balanced the best way. The figure does also, of course, come included with lots of hands. Lots and lots of hands. I tried my best to kind of pair all the hands together, like for like, scary to scary. Starting first, though, the figure does come included with a couple of relaxed hands. The relaxed hands, though, aren't as different as the ones that he already has on the ends of his forearms. If you look at actually the hands that he starts out the packaging with, they're a little bit more curved in. But other than that, they're not much different. Of course, you get yourself 2 of these, and everything that I'm going to be showing you guys is basically a pair. So every one of them have a mirror flip to one another. So you get yourself a pair of just regular relaxed hands. By the way, too, I know I'm probably going to be talking more about that when we look at the rest of the remaining hands. But again, like each one of them, so well painted. The individual nails, of course, in the ends. I don't know how well these get filed on the aliens, but nicely painted, though, in silver. And again, all of them are wet to the touch. Not literally wet to the touch. I shouldn't exaggerate, but they have a little bit more of a clear finish. Clear finish, trying to get that all out. The figure also does come included with a couple of, I guess, scary hands. I mean, really, all these hands are quite scary. But these ones have the fingers curved in a little bit more. By the way, all of these just attach simply by pegs. I'll show you guys how one of them work, and I'll just kind of pop the hands off the forearms in a second. But hands that have slightly curved fingers. Would those be wave hands? Because again, like the hands kind of have a wave gesture to them? Maybe. The figure does also come included with much larger mauling hands. Wouldn't all of these really be mauling hands, right? But again, like these just simply attach onto the, well, again, I'll show you guys in a second. And then he also comes included with, I want to just make sure I've got all of these here, because there's quite, again, a lot to cover. What are we looking at here? Six pairs of interchangeable hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 pairs of interchangeable hands. These hands are a little stranger in design. It kind of actually looks like the alien has arthritis. For a second, though, I thought this would actually attach onto the bottoms of his legs, and they would be actually swappable feet. But the feet actually do have little tiny, you'll see in a second, they have little tiny spikes sticking on the sides. So it sort of has these weird-looking hands. Again, if you want to have him, I guess, posed inside of his cocoon. Of course, the origins of the Scorched Xenomorph is the fact he gets damaged inside of a cocoon. One of the kind of interesting incorporated things that Alien Romulus did that I did kind of like, the fact that it actually goes into a cocoon state the second time around as it gets to its mature adult self. With all this talk, of course, of changing out the hands, I have yet to actually do this. If you want to just kind of hold on to this forearm, just kind of wiggle the hand and remove it from the post. Just like that. Find the hand that, of course, you want to then use. Whether they're scary aliens or not, I don't know if I would say the rule of thumb still applies. I mean, let's just assume that this is the thumb. We're going to go with that. And then we'll just plug that back in place. Super, super easy. I guess that's really all the accessories, though, that come included with the figure, except for one other thing. Just going to move everything out of the way here. We'll also move the display stand. The figure does also have a swappable dome. Now, out of the packaging, if you want him specifically to be the Scorched alien, which seemed to be kind of one of those things that was incorporated in AVP, the idea that you could have a unique alien just because there's something damaged to him. The grid alien, I thought, was kind of a cool touch. They sort of took that idea and incorporated it to the idea that a dome was cracked on a xenomorph, and that sort of becomes the main alien throughout the film, even though we don't really see the Scorched Xenomorph all that much, which was kind of, again, a one thing. I don't want to get off to a side tangent. I do really wish, though, that Alien Romulus would have actually had one alien, not several aliens. Again, it just sort of felt like they were picking and pulling elements from all the other Alien films instead of really just trying to be their own thing. Picking up, though, the alien, though, one thing I will say right away, again, this guy in the packaging, I was happy to see that all the joints were super tight. But the thing that makes him, though, the Scorched alien is the fact he's got this crack right at the front of his dome. I don't know if you guys can see it. Probably would help a little bit better if I took my blasted finger out of the way. See the crack, though, that's on the front of his dome? Yeah, it looks pretty cool, doesn't it? The thing I also really like, though, about the Scorched alien is that he has this tiger tail striping all across the top of its dome. Now, if you did want to swap this out, let's just say, oh, I don't know, twist my rubber arm, you want to buy more than one of these. If you wanted to have like an army builder and you don't want them also obviously all looking the same, just sort of get your finger underneath this little ledge right here. I guess probably even is easier to grab it from the side. But either way, though, you can see the outline here of where the dome is a separate piece. Just detach it. And just actually before I put on the other dome, you can sort of see the skeletal inside of the Xenomorph. Kind of looks a little comical, doesn't he? I mean, still, I don't think you'd want to get this close to an alien. But then basically what you're going to do is that there's pegs on both sides of the replacement dome, and they fit inside the holes on either side, if, again, I get my fingers out of the way. So we'll just plug that in place. Just make sure it's plugged all the way on there. And now you got yourself a more cleaner-looking Xenomorph. Again, if you want to have more than one of these. I love the coloring on this. I do think the tiger striping on the top of the dome is one thing that's incorporated into this alien that we really haven't seen much before, but it works really well for this design of character. The thing I also really like about him is while he does have a lot of similar Xenomorph traits, the tubes on the back of his body, the little hoses that he has for his shoulders, for example, the long extended fingers, the dome on the head, and you can go on and on and on. The thing I do really like about it is now incorporating colors of copper. You can see like on the backs of his tubes, for example, he's got this additional copper color. Kind of looks like the color of Coke. All this rusted brown that they've added to the bottom of it extends out to the ends of his tubes. I feel like these are probably all done in translucent plastic, and then they've carefully gone in there and airbrushed or painted. Very much the meticulous transitioning of colors. It works really well for the character. He's got some of that there also underneath his shoulder. Again, I don't know what you would call these little shoulder tubes that he has. There's all these cool little things that you'll pick up on the character. I don't get the tail caught on the camera, but you can see like there's a lot of really neat looking browns that they've incorporated. It's subtle. It's not to the point where it's smack dab in your face, but it's so subtly added to the areas of the body that you don't for a second notice it until you start to spin the figure around. Again, he's got it on his fingers, all down the fronts of his legs, down below, even on his feet. I did say, though, one thing that's interesting about this Xenomorph is the fact he does have, if you look at the front of his toes, he's got these little hooks on the front. Now, that may help to provide traction, maybe for the alien when it's walking through space. Not literally walking through space, but you know what I mean. These are nicely painted, too, as well as the toes on the ends as well. Now, I've heard issues, though, getting the Xenomorph out of the packaging, that tail breakage was a common problem. Now, I can only really speak for the tail that I have on this alien. I haven't had any problems whatsoever, but some have said one of the biggest concerns was the way that they actually stored the alien inside the packaging, and that the tail was awkwardly bent. It results, though, in fracture issues and sensitivity issues to having the plastic start to split or crack. Again, I haven't had it at all an issue with my alien, but I'm not saying it hasn't happened at all. Now, for the figure's articulation, going, though, back to the head sculpt of the Xenomorph, if you're familiar really with the articulation on standard Xenomorphs, then you'll pretty much be familiar with the articulation on this guy as well. So the head's going to be on a ball joint. Independently on its own, it does rotate. When you rotate it, though, too far, you start to kind of see the sculpting of a neck underneath. Now, they easily could have just gone in there and left that unfinished, but I do have to award some points to NECA that they actually did sculpt this. So, I mean, even as awkward as that may be to turn the head of the alien all the way around like this, I mean, to actually go in there and still sculpt something, I think that the team should be awarded for that. Again, like the head does rotate all the way around. This is probably not normally what you would do with an alien, but anyways, you can rotate it all the way around. I did notice, though, with this dome doesn't seem to stay in place as well as the cracked one. Every time I seem to push this down, it comes off again and again. I mean, for me, I'm only going to display this guy anyways with a scorched crack look on the front of his face. But I did notice, though, that this dome doesn't stay as well as the other. Of course, this whole time of talking with the alien, we've yet to actually mention the fact the figure does have the internal jaw. You just simply open up the mouth, which I kind of really wanted to leave off for the articulation on the figure. And of course, this alien, like all others, most of the time at least, has the extendable jaw. I don't really remember what the inner jaw looked like color-wise in the movie. I don't know if it was necessarily this color, but it almost does in a way look like it's unfinished, unpainted. It does actually kind of look more like a tongue than it does an inner mouth, but still I always appreciate the fact that they incorporate something like this. Just open up the mouth, say ah, and just pop that back in place. He also does have a secondary ball joint, which is a little harder to access. It's actually at the base of the neck. I find, if anything, I have more ease to actually move the head, but the neck itself does also move back and forth. It is, after all, sitting on a ball joint. Oh, there goes the dome. Just pick up the dome again. Pop that back in place. As for his torso, the upper torso of the Xenomorph is, of course, going to have a ball joint. The arms themselves hinge out, I would say, comfortably at a 90-degree angle, or T-pose if you prefer. The arms, again, rotate all the way around. The figure does have a double hinge on the elbow here and here. Does allow. Now, I did notice, though, with mine, the joint right here is tighter on my Xenomorph. I've loosened it up on this side. This side's still pretty tight. If you're having a similar issue, stop what you're doing right now. Don't go any further. maybe heat this up first with a hair dryer. That's probably the easiest thing, just to make sure that the joint is a little bit softer, because you don't want to bend this and inadvertently break the joint off. Then you'll be sad, and you don't want to be blaming this guy for telling you that. Anyways, the hands do rotate also all the way around, whether you want to use these hands or all the other provided hands, which are actually right over there. Hands rotate all the way around. There's a hinge back and forth. As for the legs split out. I mean, they're limited, and that always seems to be the case with aliens anyways. You can move the legs, but you can only move them out about that far. The legs, however, though, move forward and move back. So, of course, if you did want to have this more in a running pose, by all means, though, keep this on the ready. I just got it off to the side here. But the leg goes forward. You can certainly take the leg and move it back as well. The figure does have also a hinge in the knee, which always seems to be the thing that develops looseness over time. I mean, I already did say this, getting the Xenomorph out of the packaging. The joints were nice and tight on this guy. I just love the coloring on this. I know I'm getting sidetracked here. And then as for his feet, if you look down below here, so he's got a single hinge, I guess where would be his ankle. So that moves up and down. And then he's also got a foot joint. So the joint itself on the toe can actually move back and forth, but you can also rock it back and forth as well. Can you see that? I hope you can see that. The figure also, for a second, I thought he had toe articulation, but he doesn't actually have toe articulation. The only other thing I would say, though, and it's hard to kind of pull this off with all aliens, but the fact that he has flat feet like this, if they didn't even include a display stand, had they only just put peg holes on the bottoms of his feet, it would also help for some stability of the figure. Like I said, though, getting this guy to stand, even without his display stand, most of the time I can pull this off, as you can see right now. I shouldn't have even jinxed it. But of course, he does also come included with a display stand. Make use of that as best you can. Again, I like to kind of have it near the back of his tail, where the tail kind of connects to his lower torso. That seems, at least for me, to be the best place to put that. Oh, see, there we go. So let's just go ahead and do that right now. Just put this on the back of his body. I mean, what little work did I have to put into doing that? See, that seems to be the best place. All in all, though, I really like the look of Alien. I mean, really, while I wasn't as much of a fan of the actual Alien Romulus film, I think, just to note, though, I want to be fully clear. I like the movie if it was an Alien movie on its own. If it didn't have to connect at all to anything in the timeline where we start to kind of course correct the events that would follow afterwards. I don't think it really needed to be in between the 70s film and Aliens, because it felt right away, and I don't want to give anything away for anyone that hasn't seen it yet. So I'm just going to not give spoilers away, but I don't feel it needed to be where it was in the timeline of the Aliens. It could have popped up anywhere in the timeline, and I think it would have made a little bit more sense. From a figure standpoint, though, and I have to kind of obviously separate the two, the Alien Romulus Scorched Xenomorph is a gorgeous looking figure. It's a lot bigger, though, also than other NECA aliens we've gotten in the past. The colors are really good. I love the shinier finish that they've given it. And I do really like also that they've incorporated some of that rusted brown elements into the figure. There's still enough here of the alien that it doesn't seem foreign or alien. But what I do really like, though, is that they've still taken the elements of what made Aliens so scary in the first place, and they just found a way to tweak it. They tweaked it in the film, they tweak it here in the figure, and the figure is a fantastic release. So now that we've wrapped up the review for the Scorched Alien from Alien Romulus, what's next? Well, on the radar, though, we will also be looking at the Alien Romulus accessory set. So if you have been missing Big Chap and hope that he's going to be coming back, which, yeah, I don't know. I don't think that should have really been something incorporated into the film. But don't worry, don't fear. We will be looking at the Alien Romulus accessory set in an upcoming review. Back, though, to the Alien Scorched Xenomorph. The thing I really like about this thing is while it keeps elements still the same as what you're used to seeing with aliens, right down to the articulation points, there's some interesting new elements that they've incorporated into the figure. The joints were nice and tight getting this out of the packaging. Again, I've heard some horror stories of the tail snapping. I, again, haven't had any issues at all. And I showed you in this review that the tail seemed okay, at least on mine. And the figure is tight enough on joints that he holds the joint pose really well. In fact, now that I've got, of course, the display stand that comes accompanying this figure, you can get at this guy in a pose that normal xenomorphs wouldn't be able to do normally on your shelf. The figure does have some really nice colorings. Of course, it does have the facehuggers, it does have the chestburster, and it does have a slew of hands. What do we count? Like a total of 8 pairs of interchangeable swappable hands? That's a whole lot to be coming included with the figure, considering if we go back to the timeline. No, not the Alien timeline, but NECA's timeline. We do remember, of course, when they started releasing Alien Xenomorphs, there really wasn't much in the way of accessories that were included with the figures. Maybe, if anything, there was one Facehugger, one chestburster, maybe one pair of interchangeable hands. Look how far we've now gone. A big thank you again to the folks over at NECA that did provide, of course, the sample of the alien Romulus Scorched Xenomorph that we had the chance to have a look in this review. Let me know down below in the comment section, first of all, what you guys thought of this figure, but also let me know what you guys thought of alien Romulus. Too much fan service? Too much squeezing things in already into established alien timelines? What do you guys think of the film? Let me know. If you guys did also enjoy this video, you can do it a solid and throw it a like. You guys want to stick around for more so? I hope so. You can hit that subscribe, you can turn on that bell, but the most important thing is that you can also come back. We're going to be also, even though we're wrapping up things right now in deep space, we will have more NECA reviews lined up and coming your way for the rest of this week. As always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.